Manchin still supports the disclosure of dark money, tightening the ban on coordinating between candidates and super PACs, requiring tech platforms to disclose political advertising, and a mandate for campaigns to disclose any contacts with foreign actors. He supports a provision to ban partisan gerrymandering of congressional districts and ethics provisions to strengthen foreign lobbying enforcement and tighten conflict of interest rules, including requiring that presidents and vice presidents divest from any financial investments that could pose a conflict of interest after taking office. So when I first saw this, I thought, oh, it's got nothing, but it actually, Manchin doesn't support all of the dark money and the lobbying restrictions that I think progressives we want to see. But it makes sense that someone like Stacey Abrams, who is not a particularly far left person, being for voting rights doesn't make you a leftist, just makes you for democracy. Right. And Stacey Abrams said this, I just want to go to her quote, because she said, look, the GOP efforts to weaponize her support for the new talks among Democrats did not change the political fundamentals of the partisan clash. If I disagreed with it, they were going to oppose it. If I agree with it, they were going to oppose it. There's nothing in the access to the right to vote that will appease Mitch McConnell. That's echoing what David said right there.
Right.
Yeah, I just want to jump in on a couple of those things. So first of all, I like that now being in favor of democracy is a leftist position. I mean, I both like it and don't like it, because the right wing is now saying, yeah, democracy, we could do either way. We can go either way on it, and that's not how. It's not healthy for the country, right? But in terms of what you said about the bill, Francesca, that's actually exactly what I said yesterday. We have a poll up on it. You go to tyt.com/polls. Which way should it go? And it's polling. I think last I checked it was like 55-45. People saying no, they should vote down the compromise. I'm in the camp of I would take this compromise, even though campaign finance reform is my top issue, and they're getting rid of matching funds. And I'm going to talk to Professor Lessig from Harvard about it, and you guys will see that interview tomorrow. And he's furious about this, and you should be furious that they're taking out the anti-corruption parts. But the Disclose Act is in there, and for me that tilted the balance towards saying yes. But I don't want to just say yes and let them take out campaign finance reform. So that's why we're now doing a petition where we're asking people, hey, look, or progressives in Congress, I get it. They took out the anti-corruption, campaign finance parts, etc. And you want to vote yes on this because it has so many other good parts, which it really does, right? This is not one of these weak compromises like the infrastructure bill, which is nothing but a Republican bill and a total joke, right? This actually has a lot of great stuff in there. Getting rid of gerrymandering is so important. Disclose Act is so important. Okay, but if you're gonna do that and you're gonna take out the great parts of it, then why don't we vote on what you took out? So after you pass this bill, let's then introduce the parts that were taken out as standalone bills in both the House and the Senate. And so if you do that, then we'll get to see who's corrupt and who's not. Now the Democrats are gonna want to move on, right? They're gonna say, oh, we already voted on that, let's get out of here, right? No, you guys killed. It wasn't the Republicans. It was the Democrats who killed the anti-corruption parts, right? So let's see who's gonna vote yes and who's gonna vote no. Because I think you guys are liars. I don't think you ever meant campaign finance reform. I don't think you were ever gonna do matching funds, because that would let people primary you, and you don't want that. You wanna hold on to your power. So progressives, you're in exchange for your vote, you should demand an up and down vote on some, and it's really easy actually, because if they're not lying, the Democratic leadership is not lying, they'll be happy to give you a vote, because theoretically they're in favor of it. Pelosi, Schumer, and Biden all say they're in favor of it. So let's vote on this first, then let's vote on the other parts. I know it's gonna lose, I just wanna see who the corrupt Democrats are.
Right, and who's running cover for who. I guess I want to ask both of you, is Manchin gonna tire of looking like an utter fool in front of the entire nation? Like that he's holding this up for some vision of bipartisanship that he knows doesn't exist, and Mitch McConnell just keep on hanging him out to dry? Meanwhile, this week, that recording of him leaked where he was like, okay, well, so if I get him to vote for the, for the January 6th commission, then we can keep the filibuster intact, right, guys? Right, guys? You're gonna keep giving me money, and not even that. He can't win.
That was an amazing call. largely for this reason, because what he was asking these wealthy donors to do was to encourage Republicans through promises of future jobs. Actually, in the case of Roy Blunt, who was retiring, said, you're going to be in a position to give him a job. So if you could tell him that he should vote for the January 6th commission, that would really help me in terms of my position on the filibuster. So it's like Democrats can't even get bribes right. Like they're asking to bribe a Republican. It's a Democrat is someone who can't even take their own side in a bribe. Like they're asking the Republican to be bribed so that it would make it easier for them to do nothing as a Democrat. That was sort of a window into the mind of Joe Manchin, which is not a place that you really want to be.
But David, I'm going to follow up on that, right? So you're a journalist, and so we do talk shows, and as it turns out, now talk show hosts are better journalists than most of the folks in mainstream media. But you're a hardcore real journalist, right? Do you get discouraged about the state of journalism when the rest of the media keeps talking about Joe Manchin's principles and ideas and policy positions? When we all heard it, we just heard it, him on tape talking about who really decides things. They're telling the donors who to influence. Give me money, give the Republican money, so we can do this thing. That's the real negotiation, and yet the entirety of the mainstream media still pretends as if that's not what's actually happening.
Yeah, it is frustrating. I try to focus on things that have an impact, things that we can make happen. I focus a lot on executive action and not this back and forth in Congress, because it's just so frustrating. But yes, I mean, certainly that tape exposed Manchin as someone. I mean, the only question that you have is like, what are you doing in Congress? Like, what is your purpose here? What are you trying to accomplish other than the accomplishment of accomplishing nothing, which is he's really good at. That does seem to be his core competency. But like, what are you up to? What do you want out of?
That I could answer, David. That one's easy. You do nothing if you want to protect the status quo. And the people who are really wealthy and powerful in this country, and especially the corporations that are really wealthy and powerful, like things as they are, because they're currently on top. So if you're on the very top of a system, you would want nothing to fundamentally change. And hence, and so what is Manchin and honestly Joe Biden, what do they get out of it? They get power, they get prestige, they get status, they get glory, right? And they also get money. But mainly it's the power and the glory. And in return, they give the donors what they want. Nothing will change. We will maintain the status quo, and you will remain at the top, and everyone else will remain under you. That's American politics described in about a minute.
Incidentally, we did focus on that one piece of that tape. The other part of the tape was Manchin saying, well, the filibuster would be better if it was 41 people trying to hold the floor rather than 60 people having to do all the work. I could see a talking filibuster. Now he's gone back and forth on this in public statements and now in private statements. But there was like this narrow window where he was talking about this in a way that would force the minority who wants to block legislation to actually do so in the light of day. And so that was a bit of a change for Manchin, and if anything, that's what should be followed up on rather than his wondrous ideas about how things can happen on voting rights.
So just real quick, last thing on this is, if you want to sign the petition, by the way, it's tyt.com/petitions/for-the-people, okay? But you can always go to tyt.com/petitions, and if you're watching this later on YouTube or Facebook, we'll have the link down below for you guys. But don't let progressives or Democrats just vote yes on this without also making a demand, a reasonable demand, for an up and down vote on the rest of the bill. And logically, there is no way to argue against that. Of course, it being Washington, they're not likely to be logical, but let's do our best in creating the public pressure to make that happen.